This is Salt's YouTube channel where we have conversations on hot topics. And I'm joined today by a friend. It's Bring Your Mates to Work Day. It's Emma Clark. Hey! Emma's that friend who you go to for a cup of tea, who's always got good thoughts, honest conversation, funny experiences when it comes to dating. But also, you set up your own business, which was a dating app, which is not live anymore.
Yeah.
But in doing so, you did a huge amount of research into dating apps.
Yeah.
You really understand what it's like out there. You've got some quite unique insights. So we're going to be talking about how not to hate being on a dating app.
Yeah.
Which lots of people do.
Yeah.
So aside from just the general lived experience of people dating.
It's not that much, Lauren.
No, very little. Between us,
yeah.
it's probably a good sort of half an hour having checked it out.
Yeah. Something like that.
But also just as a sort of, professional point of view, sort of overlooking what the climate's like.
I mean, I've read a lot of books, a lot of research. I think there's a lot of this will be do as I say, not as I do, but also some personal experience too. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start off with when you are on dating apps for yourself personally.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy that process?
It really depends. I think when I'm really hating it, I actually take myself off them and I stop being on it. Do I love the process? Oh, I mean, no.
No.
Who does?
Literally.
It's really hard.
I think that 5% of the time on a dating app or 10% is enjoyable and exciting.
Yeah.
And the other 90%, much like anything that's worth investing in, takes, engagement and time and a bit of slog, and it actually doesn't feel very fun.
Yeah. Administration. You've never met these people before. You're forcing yourself to reply to a picture and a few words, and you have no idea about the personality behind this person.
Yeah.
And actually, if you just want to reply to your friend's WhatsApp that you love, that you know them, it's so much more fun, so much more interesting.
Yeah.
And it feels like such a more of a draw of your time.
What I found though was I would be in a certain mood when I set up the
hopeful,
hopeful, excited,
keen.
Really feeling like
some time
real
in the
life
diary.
wasn't bringing fresh options. So, oh my goodness, this whole world of options here is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
Really feeling like I had time to engage in conversations. And I'd say often within 2 days, I didn't feel that way anymore, which meant I was basically what the guys at Salt try and stop people from being, as quite a passive, disengaged dater.
Yeah.
So taking ages to reply to messages.
Yeah.
Or sometimes just not opening the app for weeks at a time. And then I've ghosted people without even intending to. Because it all just feels a bit too much. And, or maybe a bit disappointed because you see a couple of profiles that you think would be an amazing match, but then they don't match back.
Yeah.
I think that was my pattern. There's some of the things that made me kind of hate. Hate's a really strong word.
Yeah. Or just get tired of them. And not really be excited.
You just
and you've
get
got to bring
fatigue.
energy to it, don't you?
Yeah. And then there's specific times. So I would always suggest a quick FaceTime or video call before I meet up with someone in person.
Yeah.
Some people got really weird about that.
The dating app I used to run was a video dating app, and guys find it really hard to do videos. They find it very exposing, and they tend to be less comfortable with that. They tend to be more introverted. Girls, we have a culture of photographing ourselves with our friends all the time. We're used to being on camera. They find it harder.
Yeah.
So I think that can be hard. But also there are some people who don't trust that they can come across well on a video call. So they're afraid of it, and they, feel like they want your time.
Aside from general fatigue, right?
Yeah.
Also, you can, the internet's open to all, right? And some people are just not particularly kind.
Yeah.
Some people want to be kind, but maybe don't have the tools to do that very well or to communicate very well.
Yeah.
Some people have got intentions which are completely different from yours on a dating app. There's loads of different things, as well as the sort of general fatigue of maintaining conversations with strangers where there's no existing relationship, where you're trying to force yourself to get into a run from a sort of standing start.
Yeah.
It's not like you've met them and they're friends and then, suddenly you're flirting. So there's all of that sort of pressure. But then also I found an accumulation of really weird things would happen, or things that would knock me down. Sometimes the things would be sad or annoying or frustrating. People might be a bit rude.
Yeah. Catfish.
Classic. Yeah. I had one person who got on a video call and I was literally sitting over there and he was oh. And he had quite big arms. It was just really tired.
I've told you my theory about weeding out the crazies, haven't I?
Gosh, I can't.
Can I not? Am I allowed to call them crazies? Is that
hinged
fair?
or unhinged?
You're not unhinged.
Okay, tell me the.
Yeah,
Tell
so
me
you
the
need to
reading up
chat to
crazies.
people. Like either your method, the video call,
Yeah.
or just sending a few texts over time, voice noting over time. And I think generally the crazies like reveal themselves and they do something that's a bit odd. They might message 3 times in a row on more than one occasion without you replying, or they might do something else super
Is that
intense.
crazy? I suppose 3 times in a row without you replying on multiple occasions. Yeah.
Definitely a sign of crazy. Stay
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
But then the amount of times I've then said to them, like, I'm so sorry, I'm not feeling this. And then when you get this kind of really angry or something message back, I just think to myself, the system worked.
Yeah.
Chatting to people worked. I weed out the crazy. This is so good. And now I don't have to meet up with this person in real life.
Yeah.
I don't have to have an actual exchange with this person. I'm safe and protected from them.
If I've said to someone, I don't think that this is the right match, I don't think this is a connection, without necessarily being, I don't like to offer people feedback on their character. You don't know them. That's not on you. That's for their church leaders. That's for their close friends. That's for their family. I'm not here for your personal development. But I'll just say that I'm not feeling it. And if I get a nasty message back,
then you realise you've done the right thing.
it is like, oh, I'm so pleased. Oh my goodness, thank goodness. Because I know some of the people I've dated in the past, some of my male friends who are really kind, and all they'd say back to that is like,
no worries.
Great to
I hope it works out for you.
Great to have spoken.
Yeah.
All the best with your dating. Wish you well. And that's it. And I know, like, there's no point trying to offer a rebuttal. I had one person challenge me on, like, basically say I was being too picky.
Really?
And it's for wanting somebody whose conversation I enjoy.
Yeah, you actually get on with.
Marriage. Oh, I want to sit across the table from you and talk to you.
Yeah.
Why am I so fussy?
Yeah. That's so bad. Gosh, I'm so
I
sorry.
know. No, it happens. Like, I'd say I've had several of those messages of people issuing correction when I've said this isn't right for me, without them actually knowing me and knowing why necessarily I've made that decision.
Yeah.
And you're just like, you have just proven that if anything, I spent too long
chatting to you. Yeah. I mean, I had one guy that I sent a message basically being like, look, I'm really sorry, I'm not interested or I'm not feeling this for whatever reason. And then he told me off, and in his telling me off message also mentioned the fact that people ghost. And I was trying not to ghost. I mean, I was literally trying not to do that. Do you want to react to the messages from this guy? They're so funny.
What messages?
Do you want me to show them?
Yeah,
okay,
go on.
yeah. Where's to say this one? Oh, imagine the scene. He's messaging me on Assault, and I was away with friends, and he was like, what's your number? I just sent him my number before I'd done the proper amount of vetting with the conversation, which is fine. These things happen. And I was away, and I told him that I was away and I wouldn't really be able to reply much. And I got a lot of messages. So obviously I thought this looks like crazy behavior. You seem crazy. I'm going to back out, send something really polite. And honestly, this whole pages and pages of like very aggressive. Have I not shown you this?
No.
Oh.
You have very politely said, I'm not feeling this. You seem like a great person. Wish you the best, but I'm not going to continue this, right?
Yeah.
And he's gone straight in with, I get it. People not knowing what they want, stalling and jumping from one person to another. Very British. I got used to it after 5 years. Fake politeness. Cheers.
Yeah.
So what's quite good about that is he's accused you of fake politeness, but then ended with cheers.
Yeah.
Which is polite, but obviously...
Yeah.
Obviously not authentic. But just messaging someone directly and saying, I'd prefer not to continue this. Thank you for your time. If you can't handle that, you should not be on a dating app.
Yeah.
Because that is going to be 90% of your experience. That is dating apps. It is trying things out.
Yeah.
And that is trying things out as in just looking at a profile, trying things out in just exchanging a few messages, trying things out, swapping numbers, having a video call, going on a date.
Yeah.
How many times do you start that process and it doesn't end in marriage? Thousands.
Yeah.
Thousands.
Well, 100% of the time so far.
So, because we're unmarried. But you had somebody lie about their age as well.
I did have someone lie about their age.
that?
Basically, this person and I had a chat. We'd matched when they were in London. They were abroad. They were going to fly back early for this date.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, that's quite intense. Could just wait.
Could just wait,
sure.
yeah.
Fine. We had a few video calls because, obviously before you book a flight, you like to just double check
sensible.
that there's,
Yeah.
And I have to say, I did already have some misgivings.
Okay.
And there are a few things that I was like, oh, I'm not so sure about this. But, I'm going to be open. I'm going to be like receptive, so on, so on. And then just as he was about to book his flight, he just calls me and he just goes, just one thing, minor thing. I'm sure it won't be a problem. I'm probably just over worrying about this. But I'm just a little bit older than my profile. And he was like, my sister told me to do it really. But basically, it's just, I'm not really attracted to women my own age. So I know. And I did think he looked quite unwell, but he'd spent a lot of time in Africa. So I was like, maybe it's just like he's been in the sun, you know, looking a bit weathered. I don't know.
How much older was he?
5 years.
5 years.
Which actually
okay.
isn't like, what is weird is he would have fit into my age range anyway.
Yeah.
So he would have made it into my filters.
Yeah.
But he lied about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm not going to progress and, you know, proceed with something where you started off by lying to me. That's like an ultimate red flag to begin with.
How
Absolutely
you do
no
anything
way.
is how you do everything. And if you're willing to lie about small things, what happens when something really big happens?
Yes, exactly. And I think also it shows a lack of trust in God from him, like a complete lack of faith.
Yeah.
You,
But he has
you
to
don't
take that
need
into his own
to
hands.
go so far as to lie in order to secure a relationship. You know, you shouldn't need to do that. It's the same with catfishing, with photographs.
Yeah. Yes.
Really, really old photographs. You know, if you really feel like you have to put a photograph on that's so old in order to secure a relationship, you know, you're not trusting God.
And actually, I think you're most likely to get to the point where you're calling someone your boyfriend or your girlfriend if you've used legitimate pictures. I think
sure.
people think, oh, well, I'll get some interest using these pictures. And then when they meet me, they'll really like me. They'll feel a bit deceived and they'll feel like their time hasn't been respected and they'll feel uncomfortable and you won't come across as particularly genuine or honest. And I reckon you may end up with more first dates, but you'll end up with far more second dates if your profile is exactly what you're offering on the date.
That's true. So when we did the secular dating app, it was all video profiles.
Yes.
And actually everybody went on a second date because you'd already seen so much of what someone's like. Although we did have a lot fewer matches than you would normally have on a dating app.
That's interesting.
So harder to get to that first bar, but easier then to get to the second bar.
Kind of, though.
That's what you want.
You want quality over quantity.
Yeah.
Because what we go wrong with often is having 20 matches in our inbox, not being able to maintain
20.
which is totally unsustainable for daily interaction. I remember for a while having say like 10 conversations that were live and having to go back into the profile to remind myself, who is Tim anyway? Oh, Tim was the guy who like rode on an elephant sometime. Okay, fine, back. Oh, John, who's done the bungee jump, John. But actually when you're doing that, you're learning about their character, but you're just attributing it to general men on salt. You're not attributing it to that's John who does this and that and that. You're not actually building a connection with them.
Yeah.
For all of the reasons we've described, dating apps are really exhausting.
They are really
hard work.
exhausting. Yeah, they can be. But that's when you need to take yourself off. You need to be really wise and just sensible. And, you know, if there's a couple of people that you're kind of hanging on for, just message them and just say, I'm going to take a break. Can I give you my number? Or a really good one is sharing an Instagram handle. Because actually then you get another look into someone's life. You see a bit more of what they're like over the longer
sharing
term.
a social media platform,
It's a bit less intense. You can maybe reply to some stories. And then
you can
could
see if
maybe
you've got
progress
mutual
to date.
friends as well.
Yes,
and
really
I love
helpful.
that. Yeah, really helpful. If somebody's listening to this, they're like, I've had all of that. I've had the weird messages. I've had people tell me off for saying I didn't want to keep dating. I've endured dates rather than enjoyed them. I've had people show up who don't look like their photos. Because ultimately, you know, every time I speak about dating, when we as friends sit and speak about dating, what we want is an enjoyable experience to widen your network, make new friends, get to know new people, keep God close through it, learn more about yourself, have some fun experiences, go on a few fun dates, and actually like enjoy the hope and the opportunity and all of that kind of stuff. Very few people can say they really feel that way about dating. So how do we shift the dial a bit closer to that?
Yeah, well, I think some of it is about how you represent yourself on dating apps. I know we've already sort of touched on that, but being really clear about this is who I am. Know yourself. And if you don't know yourself, sit down and figure it out. Journal it out. You know, figure out, who am I? What do I want? What do I really think is important? And then you could say what you want. You can do some sort of, these are green flags that I like. Don't say what you don't want, you know, don't be aggressive on your profile, but do make sure that you reflect some of those values and really just show who you are. Swipe really, you know, with high integrity. So be really careful about when you're swiping. Like if this person says yes, am I actually going to want to chat to them? Or am I just panic swiping and then I'm going to ghost them later? You know, try not to do that. Making sure you don't ghost people. You know, treat others as you want to be treated. Even if you are a bit worried
about the response to those messages, I do think it's better to not to leave people with a question mark and just say like, hey, I'm probably going to leave this here. And I'm not saying I've always done that and been perfect at that.
Do as I say, not as I do.
But I do really, particularly since I've started speaking about this stuff and writing about this stuff, try and make sure comms are high, even if this sort of investment level is pretty low for both of us.
And as we've said, you know, if you do get an angry response back, that's a gift, because you know that you should never have gone on a date with that person in the first place.
Just affirming your judgment.
Exactly. Like, oh, I can do this, you know? I am wise after all. So all that kind of stuff. So yeah, doing that kind of thing, having good chats with people, again, making sure that you aren't going to be totally shocked when you turn up on the date. Another thing that you can do is be interested in them and not just try and be interesting in yourself.
Yeah.
You know, ask them good questions. What do you actually really want to know about?
Yeah.
And I find that people aren't afraid to go deep, you know? Try and keep it light and be funny.
Yeah.
Or if you're not that funny, don't worry about being funny. But, you know, represent be who you are. But it's okay to throw a few deep questions in there. Like, what's your relationship with your family like? Yeah. Or, you know, what do you think about God?
I guess the final thing that I wanted to say before we close is we've kind of talked about like how it can be a bit of a misery sometimes, how we want it to be better, how we can sort of protect when, you know, and filter out other people to kind of make the experience easier, and how we can show up ourselves. But also we're people who operate differently, right? It's not just when we get married that God wants to be a part of our dating lives and our romantic lives, you know. There's also all of the stages building up, and he is a God of the details. And to be honest, this isn't even a detail. This is a major element of your life if you're in that stage where you're dating. Yeah. So I think the more that we bring God in, the more prayerful we are about it, the more that we seek prayer from friends and those around us and feel like we're not alone in it, the more sustainable the process will be.
I mean, when you're dating, I don't know about you, but I pray about it every day.
Do you?
Yeah, every day.
That's so
It's one of the things I pray about. I pray about my own life every day.
Yeah.
Terrible. I know I should be praying for other people all the time.
No.
And I do obviously do that too.
Yeah.
But I do pray about my own life every day. And I pray about dating every day. And I pray about people that I might be speaking to or dates that I might be going on. You know, I always pray on my way to a date and pray after a date. Yeah. And, you know, try and like consult God before making that, do I think this is a yes? Do I think that's a no kind of thing? Yeah. And I definitely, again, have some development to do, you know, in that area. I think we all do. But, you know, do see that it's so important. Yeah. For sure. For sure. This has been so fun. I want my friends to come to work with me every day. Thank you so much for watching. Do like and subscribe to Salt's YouTube channel because we've got plenty more hot topic conversations.